Hi, this is a video, and it's the last video, I hope, about cost of capital. But it's really a lot about scenario analysis. Okay, and what we're going to do is make a whole lot of sensitivities and scenarios to figure out, given a PE ratio, what's the implied cost of capital? And what's the implied cost of capital if we have kind of a base case here with growth going down, and maybe let's make the return go down by 2% for a while after 15 years, and then we'll make what's a really low PE case, which should suggest a high cost of capital where the ROE goes down a lot, a whole lot, where it goes down over a short period of time, where the growth is a little bit slower and it ends up to a lower long-term amount. We have a higher rate of inflation. If we have a higher rate of inflation, I think that goes the other way. I'm going to go like this. We'll do a sensitivity analysis on it. And then in the best case, the ROE goes up. The growth, let's say, goes from, let's keep it high, but it ends high too. So we'll see if we get a lower cost of capital here. And then we're going to dissect this, or attributes analysis, or whatever you call this. I'm sorry about how boring this video is. I just got an email from my brother who's got this boat on the Amazon. It's so much more interesting. Oh well. Now we're going to make a sensitivity analysis where we isolate on one single variable. I've done that before. And then we'll look at a high case, and then we'll accumulate the sensitivity, meaning that we'll take the low case, add another variable, but keep the last one and keep adding variables as we go along. All right, so we're going to just set this up, see how fast we can really do it. I'll use a transpose command to get titles out of these with low case, high case, and so forth. We'll use a little formula to fill in all of these numbers and do it fairly quickly, I hope. We'll create an index variable right here. Now, what we're going to use is a macro instead of a data table, meaning that we don't have to be nearly as worried about exactly what kind of format we use. Now, I'm going to make a range name on this index. That's why I put this here. And then when we assign the actual numbers, like this one, this one, this one, in a macro, we'll just say range cost of capital. You see the cost of capital is up here, equals range index cells, whatever this is, row 1, comma, column 1, and so forth, all the way down. Okay, and that's where we'll do this macro, where we put the inputs in, and in the macro we'll just have this scenario go to 1 up to how many columns we have. And then once we have that, we'll have a kind of a cost of capital for all of these different scenarios. We'll reformat the scenarios just a little bit to get a nice little, waterfall diagram and all that. So we'll open this one and get this waterfall diagram and do all that sort of thing. Okay, and I hope to do this all in about 10 minutes because I've already wasted a few. Now the first thing we're going to do is put equal, just select the area and put equal transpose. Okay, and then one of the nice things about the transpose is that after you do this, you can close it, put an and sign, and put low sensitivity. Okay, and then shift control enter, and then let's wrap the text. Oops. Okay, and I'm gonna not do that's enough. I'm gonna pause the video for a minute. Okay, so we've got the titles for the simple sensitivity case, the low case where we accumulate the variables, and the high case where we accumulate the variables. Now what we essentially have to do, we're going to have so many cases, we just have to summarize this nicely. Okay, now to put the variables in, we'll just use kind of the F4. So press the F4 here, and Okay, then you can come press Shift Control R, and also Control D, and how about Shift Control R? Oops, excuse me. And then just a minute. I hope I didn't do something very badly here. Okay. Okay, I had the F4s out of place in one thing. So then, if we want to do a high case scenario, we'll just select this, Control R, Control D, and I'll have to reformat it. And then for this one, we put is if the B10 less than. Let me make sure that works. Okay. All right, what should be happening? It should be accumulating and keep going. So after you make one change, it just keeps going, and finally we have to adjust it and put it on the high case instead of the low case. So we've got our last ones here. I went Control R, Control D, and then we'll format this. Okay, called EST, if you want to do it like that. Okay, and now we've got everything formatted. Now the next thing we have to do, don't have to do anything at all. But once we have all of these to make the scenarios all work, we put a index function in. Okay, and just select the whole thing. I must have done this so many times. It's ridiculous. Press the F4, and then we have our index. Okay, and once we have the index, we'll now make a macro. Okay, we've got the index. Actually, there's one little thing let's do beforehand. Let's do this conditional formatting, meaning that you're going to go to the Home tab and you're going to be a pro. You're going to make a new rule instead of and use a formula. And then in the formula, you go over to the upper left-hand one, and you take all the F4s out, and you say when it's not equal to the base case, which is this one, and you press the F4 until you just get the column, and then you go to format and pick some kind of, I don't know, what's a good one? Okay, that's not a big decision really, is it? Okay, and we show that what we've really done is to make all of these different, and you can see how the one accumulates and the other one doesn't. So now what we have to do is just go through this. If you saw the other video, we made a goal seek. So we put a PE ratio that we observe in here. I'm going to go ahead and get this from here, so I'm not going to do that with other variables, but we can. So we have to run a goal seek, and then we get the cost of capital, and we'll have to recompute the cost of capital and redo the goal seek each time. Now you can't do that with a normal data table, so we're going to adjust we're going to have to make a macro to do this. And to make a macro, let's just set it up so you can kind of see how it works. So I'm going to create a macro called sensitivity. Okay, and in that sensitivity macro, now you can see what really happened. I started to make another one of these videos, and I got really, really angry because I forgot the sound didn't get switched on. So the first thing we'll do is create counter for the scenario, and that counter will go to how many scenarios we have. But we'll start with the counter equals 1. Okay. The next thing we'll do is create a loop around, I can't spell, each column. Okay, and we can call that whatever we want, for I equals, or how about we'll put column equals 1, 2, and we'll put a range name that has the number and number of columns. Why don't I make it long? So there, this is a range name we haven't defined yet. We'll go ahead and define all of these things in just a minute. And then the first thing we're going to do is assign the scenario number. I think that's the best one. So we'll have to make a range name around the scenario number, and we'll put range, put scenario. So there's a very good chance that I'll forget some of these range names, and I'm going to switch the video off while we do this, and then let's assign the model variables. Now what we'll do here, I probably could have done this one. We'll make this one a range name, Shift Control F3. Alright, so this is a range name. You can see the name up here. And then let's put range, and we'll put something like in the other thing, this is named inflation. Okay, and I guess that we'll have to name this variable and this variable as well, but let's just name the inflation, which is kind of on the inflation is number 7. So we'll put range inflation equal index equals range index, and put cells, and we put the row number 7 and the column number 1. That doesn't change with the column number. And then we'll do the same thing for the rest of them. We'll have a range, you know, the ROE and all that, and there'll be different range names. Okay, then once we've done all of that, then we'll go to the goal seek, which is a subroutine up here. Now, I'm just going to take this one that I accidentally did before, and I didn't accidentally do it, whatever. Okay, and then we'll run, so we'll run the goal seek. Okay. Now, a minor thing here is if you ever run a goal seek with a IRR, it's probably a bad idea. You should make the NPV equal to 0. Okay, and then once we've done the goal seek, then we'll put the cost of, we figured out the cost of capital, so then we'll put the cells, and then we'll put the range of the row number, okay, which we haven't defined yet, and then this column, which is from our index, equals range cost of capital. Okay, and finally we'll put counter equal counter plus 1 for our scenario number, and we'll finish off the loop, and we're finished with our macro to kind of make our data table, which runs, of course you couldn't have done this with a data table, and you couldn't have assigned the variables in the same way. So there are some advantages, and I want to emphasize, I hope that it's really not that difficult. And I'm going to switch the video off just for a minute and fill in a lot of this stuff. Okay, I made a bunch of ranged names, and I'm just putting the row number here. And then we just select this and press Shift Control F3 to make the ranged names. And now, so that's the number of columns. I just used a count, and the scenario number we named, all of these things, these inputs we had names for, or I had names for. Okay, and they'll all get assigned now. Okay, you could suppose remember all of these first. So now we have all of the kind of range names defined. You know, what I meant by that was you could, before you create the loop, create a, remember it all the time here. Everything. Just getting yelled at for not being enthusiastic enough. Here, I'm running the table. Is this enthusiastic enough? I'm running the table, and here's what's happened. I'm very enthusiastic about this because the cost of capital for the low sensitivity case is lower than the base case. And then you're not making. I know you. Can't I give? Ah, shit! Oh, you're gonna play. Excuse me for all the interruptions. Really, I mean, I'm trying to get this video short. I'm trying to do a decent job. I'm not perky enough, I know. Now this is the, so what we do here is put the transpose in, and then we put the transpose in again. I'm not even explaining anything anymore because I'm worried about being perky. Jesus. I'm gonna throw it again. And then I'm gonna stop this video because I'm getting. Okay, when you do this, when you make this transpose, I should have subtracted the base case from this. Then you can just press Shift Control Enter, and then you select this area, and then you press F11 to make the chart, and then you change the chart type and make it a bar chart. And you have your tornado diagram, and the interesting part of this is just how that inflation actually had a big effect, and then the long-term ROE has a large effect. Today's ROE is pretty big, but not as much as the long-term ROE. The period in which the return changes from the long term to the short term, and the growth has less of an effect than the rest of these things. So hope that's a reasonably interesting result. Okay. Now, after we make the tornado diagram, then we can make our waterfall. Okay, so I'm going to put the base case in, and then put our other cases right next to them. And this time we I'll do this first for the low case. Final. I'll just call this final. Okay. And for the base case, let's just put in right next door. It's got to be right next door. Okay. And then we go to the first case. Okay. This is the next one. And then, okay. I'm just trying to finish this probably horrible video. The base case, the final thing is just to make this waterfall diagram. I'm sorry for the background noise. There's not too much, I hope. The we start with the base case, and then you use these accumulated cases that incrementally accumulate and change the variables one at a time. And you notice that the final case is the low case here, and the final case over here is the high case. So it's just another way to display the data And to do that, you need to open this file called Waterfall Charts. I made it 2010 because it required a couple of adjustments for 2013 versus 2010 in the macros, so I'm adding another little file for it on the website. Now, once you open the file, you just select this area, and don't forget that very last one, Shift Control V, and then this one that says check for deleting earlier graphs. We don't want to do that because we want to make two graphs. And then on this one, we better use a percentage. Okay, and let's see how the graph comes out. Okay, there's the downside case. If you press enter, you can change the, oops, shift control E, I think. Let's change the, nope, shift control E. I meant to put 1 for changing the bar width, so we can make it a little bit bigger, and then make some other modifications. How about we change the label size a little? Okay, and we can put a bold around it. And if you want to do some other things, like let's change the label space. That was the hardest one to do. Okay, and then let's change the title size. Where's the, well, change the title size. Okay, let's make the title a little bit bigger, and then we're finished. How's that? And press X to finish. Okay, I hope this works in slightly different versions of Excel, and then we'll put case. Okay, I suppose I should have made this scale larger too, but it illustrates that, of course, you can do it by hand still. Maybe that's a little too much. Alright, wasting a little bit of your time. Okay. And you can see how the kind of long-term ROE has a big effect. The short-term ROE has a big effect in walking you down. Alright, I saved that just in case. Now let's do the same thing. We're going to have to Shift Control V. I'm not going to click on this. It went back to the defaults, unfortunately. And I'm going to stop this video, I think, after we get this graph, and make sure that we select the other one. Now you know that if you would go back and rerun the macro, these graphs should adjust automatically. That was really difficult part of doing this whole thing. Okay, so let's do the same thing. I promised not to do this, but I'm going to do a couple of them just to see if it really works. Let's change the label space a little bit. Let's change the label size a little bit. You know, there's this book by Herbert or something like that. It's really good. It kind of just focuses on what you should do with the graphs. Change the, I don't want to adjust the minimum scale or maximum scale. Change the, let's see what happens if I want to change the, oops, that made it too big. Can I, so I'm just trying to make the scale smaller. Okay, and I'm going to X out this one. Okay, and we have a second graph. Okay, this is this again demonstrates, of course, you could have done all this by hand. Okay, and I've tried to make it so you could do as much by hand and see how the process works as much as possible. Okay, so we have the downside case and the upside case analysis. Perhaps I'll move that over here. And that's finally the end of this video.